Imagine for a second that the version of truth you've been handed your entire life, like the foundational rules about how the world works, about faith, and especially about your own potential. Imagine all of that was actually edited.
Right, just completely rewritten.
Exactly, systematically cut apart and rewritten, not to free your mind, but to actually chain it. Welcome to the deep dive.
We are so glad you're here.
Yeah. To you, the learner, listening right now, we have a mission today that is, well, it's going to challenge a lot of assumptions. We are digging into excerpts from this incredibly fascinating, highly provocative text called The Master Architect of the Infinite Mind.
And the central claim here is, frankly, explosive.
Totally. The text argues that an ancient scripture, specifically the Ethiopian Bible, preserves the original suppressed teachings of Christ. And these teachings assert that humanity was never meant to bow before institutions, or live in fear or beg for salvation.
Right. Instead, the text claims we were always meant to realize that the human mind itself is the literal workshop of God.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if this source material is accurate, it flips everything we thought we knew about faith, heaven, and hell completely upside down.
It really does. It demands a total paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And to just set the stage for you, our listener, whether you approach this as deeply religious or entirely secular or just wildly curious about human potential, this text functions as a profoundly powerful psychological blueprint.
Yeah, it takes these ancient religious concepts and totally reframes them.
Exactly. They're no longer these mystical dogmas you just have to blindly swallow. They're presented as exact practical sciences for personal mastery. The entire text is a demand that we look critically at how we govern the mechanics of our own thoughts.
Well, and the foundational claim starts with a radical redefinition of what we are actually supposed to be doing with our time on Earth.
Right.
The source material claims that the Ethiopian Bible predates the standard Bibles we know today, and that it contains books that were deliberately burned by popes and erased by kings throughout history.
Which is a massive historical claim.
Huge. And the reason for this censorship? The buried truth that Jesus did not come to create worshipers, he came to build thinkers and creators. The text explicitly says he didn't teach the weak to beg, he taught the strong to command.
Which fundamentally alters the definition of faith. The text asserts that the kingdom of heaven was never meant to be interpreted as some distant, ethereal place up in the clouds that you travel to after you die.
Right, not a physical destination.
No, it was always a condition of consciousness,
Well,
like a state of mental harmony that you construct right here, right now.
Mm.
Under this framework, faith has absolutely nothing to do with blind submission or, pleading with the universe for a favor.
It's mechanical.
Yes.
Oops.
Faith is mechanically defined as mental direction and deliberate creation.
And the text introduces this concept from the Ethiopian manuscripts called the law of Tearsat, which translates to the alignment of the inner and outer worlds.
Tearsat.
It teaches that the physical outer world merely mirrors the inner order of your thoughts.
Mm.
But let's get into the mechanics of that, because it can sound a bit like magic, right?
Oh, for sure.
The text isn't saying you just wish for a car and it magically appears in your driveway.
Not at all. The psychological mechanism it's describing is actually much closer to what modern science might call the reticular activating system, combined with self-efficacy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so your brain constantly filters millions of pieces of sensory data every second. The law of Tearsat suggests that your dominant thoughts dictate that filter.
So it's about what you let in.
Exactly. If your inner world is governed by a belief in your own helplessness, your brain will literally only allow you to perceive obstacles, slights, and, reasons to quit. Your outer world becomes a cage because your inner world drew the blueprints for one. Conversely, if your inner world is ordered by a deliberate, focused purpose, your brain begins to perceive opportunities, resources, and pathways that were actually always there.
They were just invisible to you before.
Precisely.
It's like discovering you've spent your whole life thinking you're a helpless passenger in a car, only to realize you're actually in the driver's seat and the steering wheel was just hidden under a blanket the whole time.
That is a perfect analogy.
But, okay, if we have this ultimate power to think reality into being, why does the text say rulers and institutions work so hard to hide it, like for thousands of years?
What's fascinating here is the sheer political and social threat of a fully awakened mind. The text lays out the historical logic very clearly.
Right.
A human being who fully understands that their mind is a spark of infinite intelligence becomes impossible to control. Think about it mechanically.
Okay.
If you know you have the power to create your own reality, You cannot be taxed by fear. You cannot be ruled by the threats of a fiery hell, nor can you be bribed by the promise of a golden heaven.
Because you command both of those conditions within your own consciousness.
Exactly. The institutions that profited from fear, and the author argues there have been many, from monarchies to organized religions, they built their empires on the denial of this single law.
So they needed people to forget it.
They had to. To maintain economic and social control, they had to bury the fire of the individual mind beneath layers of repetitive ritual and really rigid dogma.
Man, that sets up a really dark but crucial pivot in the source material. Because if a disciplined, focused mind builds heaven, what builds hell?
Right. The other side of the coin.
Yeah. The discussion transitions from the power of positive creation to this totally radical reinterpretation of evil. It just strips away all the mythology.
It does.
It says the devil is not a red figure with horns holding a pitchfork. The devil is simply the negative use of imagination. Hell is just mental confusion.
And the author presents this concept through this timeless allegorical dialogue with the devil. In this dialogue, the adversary is interrogated and actually openly confesses his own operational weakness.
Oh, that part is wild.
It is. The devil admits, "I live only in the minds of men who fear me." The text is basically positing that the true battlefield of good and evil isn't out there in physical space.
It's entirely within the inner chamber of human thought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the devil manages this psychological warfare through what the text calls the 6 ghosts of fear.
The phantoms without form.
Yeah. These are phantoms without physical form, yet they rule humanity. The fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, the fear of ill health, the fear of loss of love, the fear of old age, and the fear of death.
Okay, hold on. I need to stop you there. Because I understand that fear is a psychological state, right?
Sure.
But let's look at the reality of something like poverty. If you can't pay your rent, the eviction notice taped to your door isn't a phantom or a ghost.
No, it's very real.
It is a physical piece of paper. The lack of food is objective suffering. So how can the text possibly justify calling these things illusions or ghosts?
That is the exact trap the text wants us to dissect. The author isn't denying that bank accounts empty, that sickness ravages the body, or that people physically die.
Right.
The distinction lies in the mechanism of fear itself and how it paralyzes our cognitive ability to respond. Take poverty, for example. The physical lack of money is a temporary condition. But the fear of poverty is a paralyzing state of mind.
It traps you.
It keeps millions of people in quiet slavery, gripping onto jobs they absolutely despise, too terrified to think independently, innovate, or take a calculated risk that might actually change their physical condition.
Because the fear hijacks the very mental machinery you need to solve the problem in the first place.
Precisely. If you are terrified of an eviction notice, your brain floods with cortisol. You switch into pure survival mode, which drastically narrows your cognitive field.
So you can't strategize.
You can only react. And the same goes for the fear of criticism. It's a ghost because the criticism hasn't even happened yet, but the mere anticipation of it silences genius before it ever speaks.
People live their entire lives constrained by the hypothetical opinions of neighbors they don't even like.
It's tragic. The author points out that the devil's greatest weapon isn't physical destruction, it's deception.
Convincing you that you're powerless.
Yes, convincing you that you are entirely powerless, that you are merely a victim of circumstance. Once you accept that lie, the devil doesn't even need to build a jail cell for you. You will eagerly guard your own prison.
Wow. Guarding your own prison. That brings us to how this negative imagination actually manifests in our daily routines.
Right, the everyday habits.
Yeah, according to the text, the devil doesn't usually get us to commit dramatic, headline-grabbing acts of evil. He neutralizes us through a surprisingly mundane habit: drifting.
The epidemic of drifting. In that allegorical interrogation, the devil confesses a truly terrifying statistic. He claims to have absolute control over 98 out of every 100 people.
98%.
Yeah. And the mechanism of control isn't some complex temptation or grand tragedy. He does it simply by causing them to drift.
The Ethiopian scriptures referred to drifting as the sleep of the soul. And the text is very clear that drifting is not the same thing as just being lazy.
No, not at all.
Drifters are often exhausted. They're incredibly busy, but they are fruitless. Drifting is living aimlessly, leaping from one sudden fear to the next fleeting desire.
It's letting habit, workplace gossip, and the endless ping of digital notifications just dictate the rhythm of your day.
To put it in stark relief, the text contrasts the drifter with the 2% of non-drifters, people like Thomas Edison, George Washington, and Andrew Carnegie.
And the text insists these figures didn't possess supernatural intelligence. They simply utilized definite purpose. They flat out refused to drift.
Right, like the Edison example.
Yeah, when Edison failed to invent the light bulb on his first few hundred attempts, a drifter would have seen those as objective defeats and quit, totally paralyzed by the fear of criticism.
But Edison didn't view them as defeats at all.
No, he just categorized them as 1,000 ways that didn't work, completely governed by the discipline of his own thought.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The text uses this brilliant metaphor, comparing a drifting mind to an open house where anyone may enter and the master is never home.
Such a powerful image.
It really is. I want you, the listener, to hold up a mirror to your own routine for a second. Think about your average Tuesday. How much of your day is spent actively deciding what you are doing, what media you are consuming, what thoughts you are entertaining, versus just reacting to whatever wind blows through the open door?
Just scrolling, reacting, getting outraged.
And drifting.
And the most insidious part is how vigorously we defend our own drifting. We completely rationalize our inaction.
Oh, absolutely.
The text highlights that drifting frequently masquerades as a virtue, or at least as prudence. People say, you know, I'm just waiting for a sign from the universe, or I'm taking my time to figure things out organically.
But they're not.
No. The author argues these people are not being thoughtful. They're actually just drifters disguised as philosophers. The psychological truth the text hammers home is that the right moment never arrives on its own.
It must be commanded into existence.
Exactly. The universe only responds to firm directives. The idle wait for inspiration, while the definite actively create it.
So, if drifting is the cognitive sickness that's keeping 98% of us trapped in a prison we're guarding ourselves, what is the cure?
The way out.
Thankfully, the source material provides a highly specific, actionable arsenal for the non-drifter. And the foundation of this arsenal is something called controlled attention.
Or what the ancient texts refer to as the single eye.
Yes.
This is the practical application of your magnifying glass analogy from earlier. Controlled attention is the ability to hold one image, one single purpose in your mind without letting the environment fracture it.
And the text shares a really beautiful historical detail to illustrate this.
Monks of Axum.
Yeah. The ancient monks of Axum in Ethiopia had this specific physical practice. At dawn, they would face east in total silence, holding their gaze on a single point on the horizon for hours.
Or they would sit in a drafty room and guard a single candle flame all night from the wind. If the flame wavered, they shielded it.
The flame represents your attention.
And the wind represents the endless distractions of the world. The lesson is mechanical. If you can protect your attention from the wind, you master your circumstances.
So building on that controlled attention, the text lists 7 specific traits that form the armor of the non-drifter. Things like definite purpose, an organized plan, persistence, rapid decision-making, self-discipline, active faith, and the habit of going the extra mile.
But it crowns all of this with a concept called the law of harmony, or the Mastermind Principle.
Yeah, explain that one because it's so important.
It claims that when 2 or more minds unite in perfect understanding for a definite purpose, they create a magnetic circuit connected directly to infinite intelligence.
It uses Andrew Carnegie as an example.
Right, stating he built his steel empire not just on iron ore, but on this fellowship of unified purpose with his partners. It's a profound reimagining of human collaboration.
Okay, but wait, walk me through the mechanics of that, because the modern world preaches the exact opposite.
How so?
Well, we live in a hyper-competitive, zero-sum economy. If I'm trying to launch a business or climb the corporate ladder, everyone around me is supposedly trying to beat me, right? Out-innovate me or steal my market share. How does sitting around harmonizing actually win in a cutthroat environment?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text is arguing that competition rooted in fear, jealousy, or a scarcity mindset is a vibration of discord.
Okay.
And psychologically, discord triggers that exact same cortisol-driven survival state we talked about earlier. It blocks the flow of high-level problem solving.
Ah, so it shuts down your best thinking.
Exactly. When you operate in pure jealousy, you hide your ideas, you suspect your partners, and you play defense. The author explicitly states you literally cannot hate and create at the same time.
That's a powerful quote.
The negative imagination thrives in the concept of mine instead of ours. But when minds vibrate in genuine harmony, when there is absolute psychological safety and a shared definite purpose, they drop their defensive ego filters.
They process information faster.
They challenge each other without fear of criticism. which generates novel solutions that no single brain could have ever produced alone. Carnegie wasn't wasting energy fighting his partners. He was harmonizing with them to create a cognitive engine larger than any single mind.
Okay, so if the cure to our problems is this straightforward, just focus your attention, stop drifting, write a definite plan, and work in cognitive harmony with others, why do so few people actually do it?
That is the million-dollar question.
According to the source material, it's because we've been systematically brainwashed. We've
Yeah.
been conditioned over centuries to feel deep, paralyzing guilt for our own power.
And this brings us to the trap of false virtue.
Yeah.
This is arguably the most challenging part of the text for a modern reader to process. It argues that the absolute cleverest trick of the negative imagination, the devil, is to make weakness appear sacred.
Oh, that's wild.
Society, and historically the institutions of power we discussed earlier, teach us that poverty equates to humility. They teach that empin is a dangerous snare, that wanting more is greedy, and that quiet suffering is inherently holy.
The Ethiopian Scroll of Light and Shadow attacks this conditioning directly. It gives this blunt warning: beware those who profit by thy fear, for they call their prisons temples.
Wow.
Right. And the Gospel of the Flame entirely redefines what it means to be a spiritual or holy person. It says, "He who serves the divine by the work of his hands worships more truly than he who only prays with his lips."
That completely flips the script.
True humility, according to this text, isn't crawling in the dirt, shrinking yourself down, and denying your potential so you don't make others uncomfortable.
No.
True humility is standing in absolute awe of the universe and actually using the massive creative power you were given.
Refusing to use your potential, hiding your talent because you're afraid to stand out or afraid of the criticism ghost, is framed here as an insult to the infinite intelligence that created you.
It's an insult.
Yes. The text insists that a human being honors their creator most when they boldly dare to use the cognitive power placed within them.
So what does this all mean for us today? I keep picturing this absurd scenario where we've basically been walking around proudly wearing a straitjacket.
A straitjacket.
We're bragging to our friends about how tight the buckles are, how restrictive the fabric is, because someone centuries ago convinced us it was a tuxedo.
That is exactly what it is.
We're proud of our limitations.
Mm.
So how does the listener actually break free from the specific conditioning, like the guilt of wanting to succeed, the guilt of wanting to be powerful?
You break it by aggressively questioning the source of that guilt. You have to ask yourself one deeply uncomfortable question. Who profits from my belief that I should be small?
Oof, that's a good question.
Guilt, the text points out, is just the shadow cast by false virtue. If your belief that you shouldn't strive for greatness robs you of your confidence and keeps you paralyzed, that it is serving the forces of fear, it serves the drifters.
It doesn't serve you.
No. The text demands that we redefine holiness altogether. Holiness isn't abstinence from life. It isn't hiding from the world. Holiness is the mastery of life. It's deliberate action and the fearless, joyful expression of your inner potential.
It all comes back to that central, explosive revelation we started with. The kingdom of heaven isn't a destination on a map. It is a state of mind you actively cultivate.
Yes.
Fear is just a phantom, a ghost without physical form that only has the power you give it. Drifting is the true enemy of your potential. And to win, to break out of that 98% and claim your own mind, you have to fully internalize the text's ultimate affirmation. I and the infinite are one mind.
That is the core of it all.
You are not a helpless beggar pleading with the universe for a crumb of good luck or a break in the weather. You are a creator. You always have been.
And that leaves us with something critical to consider about the reality we inhabit today. The text tells us that heaven is a process of the mind, and the mind is the workshop of God. But consider the technological world we live in right now. Our modern ecosystem, with its sophisticated algorithms, endless notifications, and a relentless, fear-driven 24-hour news cycle, is essentially a massive machine engineered to fracture your attention.
It's the wind trying to blow out the candle.
Exactly. It is the wind constantly trying to blow out the candle. It is designed to keep you drifting. If the devil enters when your attention is scattered, as the text claims, then perhaps the ultimate, most radical act of modern rebellion isn't political or social at all.
What is it then?
Perhaps true rebellion is simply the act of sitting in silence, guarding your focus, and holding a single, unbroken thought.
Man, what a profound way to look at the modern world. To rebel against the noise simply by claiming ownership of your own attention.
It's a game changer.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of the mind. We really hope it gave you something incredible to chew on. Take the steering wheel back today. Remember, the truth about your potential isn't something that was edited out of existence forever. It was just waiting for you to realize you've always been in the driver's seat.
Keep learning, everyone.
Keep learning, keep questioning, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.